Remember back in Resident Evil 0 when that infected monkey takes a chunk clean out of Rebecca's chambers? Like seriously bites into her banana, spurting blood all over the place. Leaving the kind of bite wound that would totally pass on infection. But she seems to just get up and brush it off like it ain't no thing, like she was a straight man during the monkeypox pandemic. It just didn't seem to faze her, which is a little odd, seeing as she's the team's biochemist. She should know the severity of the situation more than anyone else, yet she never comments on it, they never look for a cure, and they never address it again in the series.
Don't think about it! We're gonna make a run for it!
Come on, Jill! We know how this ends!
No, I don't!
Are we still a team?
Always!
Then do me a favor, don't fuck up like I did. Go!
It's always been understood that you as the player sucking at the game isn't considered canon. Chris Redfield doesn't actually get bitten 132 times in a single night and survive without infection.
You should be wearing a clean suit, or at least a mask.
Yeah, well, how you doing?
So why did Capcom put this cutscene in the game? The monkey could have just easily pushed her in the pit without spurting blood all over the place. In fact, this is the only canonical cutscene of a legacy character to get bitten by an infected creature and not cure it. Nowhere else in the series will you see a character receiving an injury like this, and the rare times it does happen, it's addressed and taken care of, with a vaccine or some form of immunity. So, this is a unique case here, and ever since I first saw this cutscene, long before we knew the direction of the series, before we knew the extent of Wesker's stupidity, I had always assumed that this cutscene held some significance, like a setup that was going to pay off later in the series, something that would maybe explain why Wesker hired a barely legal, willing and able biochemist to join the Force just days before he planned on slaughtering them. Like, did he know something about her blood type that he needed tested and recorded in his combat data? But, as we all know, none of that ever came to pass. Instead, Capcom just gave us a one-size-fits-all explanation as to why none of the characters ever get infected.
However, it was impossible to get a 100% infection ratio. Within people, there is a subtle difference that the virus couldn't totally overtake. About 10% of the people who were injected with the zombie virus didn't get infected.
A simple, cheap fix explaining how the T-virus doesn't have a 100% infection rate in humans, even though they never show any of the main characters getting infected and surviving on natural immunity alone. Anyway, I was satisfied with this explanation up until Resident Evil Vendetta came out, proving to us once and for all that Rebecca Chambers isn't one of the lucky ones immune to the T-virus. Yeah, in this film, she gets infected twice, even though she takes multiple boosters. But I guess that's how it's supposed to work today, right? Anyway, the virus in this film, developed by Glenn Arias, is the A-virus, a Las Plaga-enhanced version of the T-virus. It's mostly just the T-virus, but with enough Plaga sprinkled in there to turn the eyes red. And she gets infected by it, so she's clearly not immune to the T-virus. So we're back to our original question. How did she survive Dunstan checking into her neck?
Oh well, I probably won't live long enough to worry about it.
And with that, I revisited every single Resident Evil that mentions the training facility, Dr. James Marcus, and the events that happened when Bravo Team arrived on scene. I read every single document, watched every cutscene, and constructed a complete timeline of events chronicling the beginning of the Umbrella Corporation to the development of Glenn Arias' A-virus, just in search for an answer. I'll admit it was kinda overkill, a lot of research for a 5-minute video, but in the end it paid off. After I'd completed the 103-page timeline of events set in the canonical Resident Evil universe, I was able to step back and see the development of the T-virus as a whole, and that's when I discovered that Dr. James Marcus completed his 10-year BOW report on the Mammalia, Amphibia, and Insecta BOWs. And in this report, it states that these creatures were all created by injecting the progenitor virus within them, not the T-virus. In fact, when the T-virus was discovered, Dr. James Marcus wrote about how he's done experimenting on animals, so this report had to come before that. And taking a look at Lisa Trevor, the most famous and documented progenitor test subject, we know that in her 40 years of history being at the lab, there isn't a single documented incident where she infected someone, meaning the progenitor virus is not transmissible through bite wounds. Still not sure about sexual transmission, assuming those documents were never declassified. So with this realization, it is settled. This monkey bite, this toad tap, these giant-ass bugs that were reported in the Arkalay Mountains long after the Mansion incident cannot pass on infection. They are not products of the T-virus. And that's it. Thank you guys for watching this video. If you enjoy this content, please click that like button and subscribe to get notified for the next Resident Evil video. I've got plenty more in the works. And also, thank you to all my patrons out there. If anyone else out there would like to become a member of the RE-Tards, the Patreon link's in the description below. Sign up to support the channel and get early access and shoutouts. Thank you Kyle, Kiera, Marco, Julia, E13, Mark, Christopher, Brian, Experiments, Turtle Talk, Trevor, and Curtis Skidmore for supporting the channel. Thanks. Bye.